What's up, Internet? It is the end of the third day. I managed to start recording this a little bit earlier than the past couple days. It was another pretty productive day. I think we got one more exalt from one of the
Long day.
bosses in here, one of the Metamorph bosses. We were killing some of these today, and they seem pretty lucrative. I've had pretty good luck farming these. I've gotten quite a bit of scarabs out of them, actually. One of the main reasons I went in there. A bunch of these polished scarabs came out of there. But we also got an exalt orb among some other chaos and stuff like that. Progression-wise, we're doing okay. My progression is more about just me not necessarily knowing exactly how to spread my watchstones at first, and so I was just kind of bouncing around in white maps for a little bit too long, trying to pick off some of the completion. And I was in white maps for way too long today doing that. So I'm not really as far or even as high level as I probably should have been today, because I was just grinding too low maps, finishing off completion and stuff. We did get quite a few maps done, but we could have got farther, I think. We're up to 8 watchstones, I think, now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah. So we're 8 watchstones at the moment. Out of, 32, I guess? And we're starting to see some red maps here. I think progression is going to start getting quite a bit faster for me. We can technically get some awakening bonuses, which is what happens if you... it's not going to work. You start getting these awakening bonuses when you have fully socketed regions, and the awakening level goes up for every fully socketed region you have. And you get a bunch of extra modifiers, right? You can see chances for additional connected map to drop from the map boss, Shaper Guardian maps, Elder Guardian maps, things like that. And then increased chances for influenced items to drop from the maps when you are in influence maps with Elder Slayers, which is pretty nice. But we don't quite have enough watchstones to be messing with that yet. I really just need to get further into the Atlas. I did kill the second round, so we had 8 watchstones, so I killed the second tier of all of the Elder Slayers. And at this point, they're still really just pushovers. We smashed them in a few seconds still. We did get to see like one more attack from each of them, but I think I need to get to like the tier 3 and 4 ones before we start actually getting to experience the fight and learn them a little bit. Gear-wise, we made a few changes. Most of this happened after the stream because I don't like trading on stream. It's kind of boring. The first thing I did was I picked up a Redeemer Wand because I wanted to test a few of the affixes. So I was alt spamming this into some of the Redeemer affix pool. And I tested Onslaught on Kill, which is Redeemer specific, which does not work for totems, so we can ignore that. I checked Frostbite on hit. I think it's just a fixed rank 10 Frostbite, and that does work with totems. And then there's a up to 20% chance to apply exposure on hit, to cold exposure, and that also does seem to work with totems. The more I played around, like on paper with those, I'm not crazy about this yet. Like, I'm not sold on the idea of a Redeemer Wand. The Frostbite on hit one in particular has some issues with your scaling later on, because if you wanted to, for example, run into Awaken Curse on hit, so that you could apply 2 curses with something like a self-cast Freezing Pulse, you wouldn't be able to wear a wand that had Frostbite on hit on it, because Awaken Curse on hit only applies that +1 to maximum curses to specifically the skills that it's linked to. So if we imagine we had Awaken Curse on hit here, just the Freezing Pulse that's linked to it would have the ability to apply +1 curse. So if you had a wand that had Frostbite on hit, and your totems were attacking with this Freezing Pulse, every time this hit, it would hit with only a 1 curse limit, and it would just wipe out your dual curse. So if you did have Frostbite on hit, your only real option would be to anoint something like Whispers of Doom onto your amulet, or get a corrupted amulet that had +1 to maximum curses globally. But I feel like that paints you into a really hard corner. Once you go that route, you know, you're never going to be able to leverage Awakened Curse on hit. And that's just how you have to plan your character from that point out. Unless you feel like, you know, throwing 10 Exalts on the ground and starting over and trying to go into Curse on hit at that point. So it feels like kind of a narrow lane, and I'm not sold on that idea. The cold exposure on hit seems okay. Again, there's like a weird opportunity question, though, or an opportunity cost problem when you have cold exposure on your wand, because right now we have guaranteed cold exposure coming from Frostbomb, right? So if you had it on your wand, you wouldn't need the Frostbomb. But A, what do you do with the 4 links that Frostbomb currently is in? How do you get damage value out of those links to make up for the fact that you're paying one of your weapon affixes into cold exposure? There's a lot of powerful weapon affixes, and you're going to pay an entire slot to do something we're already doing guaranteed. I'm not sold on that either, really. To be honest, the most interesting affix I saw on the internet and then the trade site was on the Hunter influence pool, which has I think up to a 20% chance to apply Unnerve on hit, which is a debuff that makes enemies take 10% more spell damage for 4 seconds. That's actually pretty compelling, because since it's a debuff, it would actually be a 10% damage multiplier. And for one affix, that's really good. The downside of that is that I've only seen that in the Hunter influence pool. And the rest of the Hunter influence pool would be kind of a minefield when you're trying to roll onto a wand. There's a lot of sort of projectile and bow and physical stuff in there, and sounds like it would be incredibly hard to isolate just like Unnerve and then get a bunch of caster modifiers without hitting any of the other Hunter stuff. I'm not sold on that idea. So right now, I don't have any great recommendations on influence weapons. I'm not seeing anything that jumps out at me as like, you definitely want to have one of these compared to just rolling for, you know, +1 cold in your generic, you know, crit multi. Definitely a different modifier than that. Spell damage, cast speed, things like that. There's a couple. Now you could just roll onto a Redeemer base, because there's a couple other generic modifiers that are specific to cold that might give you better chances to get a decent weapon together. There's like cold is extra chaos in there. There's flat cold penetration. There is a flat cold dispels that comes with like 4 or 5% cold pen, and those would be decent additions to the pool of affixes you could land. But I didn't see anything that made me feel like we had to go jump out and buy a Redeemer wand. Where I did see some really, really interesting opportunities, and like almost mandatory, I think, for us, is going to be Redeemer on the amulet. This pool has +1 to all cold spells in prefix, and it also has up to 10%, I think, damage penetration for cold in the prefixes. So because of the new catalysts, right, you can either wait that for elemental or you can wait that for caster. I'm pretty sure waiting it for caster will help you find cold spell skill gems because it's specific to spells. And then elemental should help you with, I'm thinking, both of them. I'm currently having it rolling it for caster modifiers because I ran up. I was gonna keep rolling this, but I landed tier 1 spell damage, tier 1 life, and tier 1 crit multi, and just at my current gear level, we're only on day 3. I didn't feel comfortable like rolling past this, so it had an open suffix too that I could put cast speed on. So we got 28% spell damage and a little bit more cast speed out of the quality, and that gave me enough room to anoint flash freeze too. We didn't need the dexterity anymore, so I'll probably at some point chase a better amulet than this, but this seemed like a really nice upgrade. If you're going to be picking out a high-end amulet, though, I think you're really going to want a Redeemer. The really, really, really high-end folks, you do have the option of going a fused Redeemer Hunter for +1 cold, and then also getting +1 intelligence skill gems out of Hunter pool. That's another one of those like insanely high-end crafting things, because those are both prefixes, so you're really going to have to chase that item like crazy. You wouldn't be able to roll anything else except either life. Like, you'd only get one more prefix. They're both prefixes. So you'd have to choose between something like spell damage and life. But it would leave your suffixes open. It's just something that seems really far away right now to get a fused dual influence base and then the currency to actually roll something that insane. The only other influence piece that I was looking at that I picked up a base for was Redeemers on Belt. This seems pretty promising to me. I haven't qualityed this one because I can't get anybody to respond to me, frankly, to get a few more Fertile Catalysts. But there's two ways you can go on the belt, I think, for Redeemer belts. On the one hand, the damage modifiers in the Redeemer pool are up to 40% damage with hits against shield enemies, kind of like the Temple Glove mod. And there's also up to 30 or 40% cold damage in the Redeemer's pool. So you could probably catalyst this elemental and try to hit both of those. They're both prefixes, I think, so kind of unlikely and a little bit uncomfortable, I think, to roll, because you couldn't roll life and mana at that point. What I plan to do is catalyze it with Fertile for life and mana modifiers, to kind of weight the pool towards life and mana rolls. But there's also, on the suffix side of Redeemer pool, there's a mod I've never seen before, which is increased mana recovery rate, which is the counterpart to increased life recovery rate on Elder Belts. And assuming it works like that stat, which it should as it's worded, it'll be a global multiplier to all your sources of mana recovery. So it'll apply to mana regen, mana from flasks, whatever. For the most part, we would just want this for mana regen, right? Like if we're in combat with our totems up and Arcane Surge. Right now I'm sitting at about 600 mana regen. That's assuming we had a 20% roll on the belt, and then it would be qualityed, because assuming it should work with the Fertile Catalyst that modify life and mana modifiers. So it'd go up to 24%. So we'd basically be going up to almost 750 mana regen. Enough that it might even open us up to that Timeless Jewel where, I can't remember which one off the top of my head. Sorry, it's almost 4 a.m. But it tries to dump your mana back into your life pool until your life is full. And you need some pretty high levels of mana regen to run something like that. 24% mana recovery on a belt would probably enable something like that. So my plan right now is to catalyze this with Fertile, and then maybe Frigid Fossil craft this just with one socket resonators, and use the weighting from the Catalyst to pull me towards life and mana for those mods, and then Frigid to try and land the cold stuff from the Redeemer's pool for either damage against chilled enemies or just cold damage. The other thing, if you notice how busted my currency looks, I also picked up a 21-23 Freezing Pulse. I didn't really expect to see one of those on the trade so early. Somebody must have got lucky with one of the Metamorph bosses or something. I doubt anybody Temple corrupted a Freezing Pulse at this point. There are no 21-20s or 21-23s on the trade that I'd seen up to now. And it was 2 Exalts, so I snapped it up. And I figure it was going to be such a long time before I even got into a regular 21-20. Like, these haven't even been looped for quality yet. And I wouldn't have been able to risk volleying my own 20 gem, assuming I even dumped my GCPs into the Freezing Pulse I had. So I wouldn't be able to risk it. I'd be sitting on 20-20 for a while. So, and since this is one of those like permanent upgrades, I thought it'd be worth it. So that's where a lot of my money went, into the amulet and into that 21-23 Freezing Pulse. As is tradition, let's jump into, I think this is just a tier 9. I haven't really had the chance to even use this 21-23 Freezing Pulse yet. But part of the reason I'm trying to push my map progression a lot further, it's going to be my focus for tomorrow, because this is a new gem, so we're going to need to do that. Okay. This stuff is all a little bit too easy, even in the tier 10 range. I want to say on POB we're doing a little bit over 1 million Shaper DS or DPS at this point with our flasks. Might be closer to like 1.2 with the 21-23. The Metamorphs have gotten easier, if anything. Like, I was doing the map boss version in the laboratory. All of those seem to be freezable so far that I've seen. So they've almost just been like loot pinatas. You put them together and then they turn into ice cubes and then they spit out loot. And like I mentioned, all the Elder Slayers have been the same way. Partly because I just haven't been able to find the tier 3 versions yet. Hopefully those ones are going to be tougher. I did see that they mentioned sometime this week we're supposed to get a patch so that these organs just automatically go into your Metamorph inventory when you kill them instead of having to run around and pick these up, which seems like a pretty nice change to me because there's not really any inventory metagame going on here. You know, there's not much reason that we should have to run around and click these if there's no consideration to our inventory space being made. So I'm looking forward to that. This guy. Oh, this is a phased boss, so this will be pretty boring. We'll have to sit here and watch some invulnerable phases passes. One thing I did want to mention is that I kind of appreciate that the Elder Slayers don't seem to have any invulnerability phases. Or the ones they do are just like a few seconds long while they prepare some kind of big attack. They're very quick encounters when you have the DPS for it, which I think is a really good thing, considering how many times they ask us to kill these guys. Unfortunately, I didn't really think about the boss of this map. It's like one of the worst ones in terms of how long he spends himself invulnerable. Oh boy. One more round. We did also see some more awakened support starting to show up. People have figured out how to start dropping those. It seems to be related to the awakened tier. Like once you have a region fully socketed, then that tier is awakened, or this region. And once you fight a Elder Slayer in a Citadel, at least at Awakened level 1, then they have a chance to drop Awakened supports. So hopefully soon, you know, I'll be far enough. Did he not drop a Metamorph thing? Oh, I guess he did. Is that gonna... What kind of bonuses do we have here? Legion Incubators, it's probably better than Essences. Unique armor, we can afford that too. Alright. Generally these things have been... They're getting more life at this tier. Oh, that guy's actually not freezing. Maybe he had immune to freeze or something. Whoa! Please don't blow up. Some nasty chaos on the floor over there somewhere. That was probably the first time I've seen a Metamorph fight back in a while. Figures it would happen when I record a video, huh? But yeah, that's sort of the end of day 3. I'm a little bit further behind than I'd like to be just because I spent too much time dicking around trying to figure out how to progress my Atlas, and I think I have a better understanding of it now, so I expect to be getting into red maps tomorrow. We're definitely geared up. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention, I guess we did finish our Uber Lab today. So that's why we've got significantly more mana than we did yesterday. But this level of gear seems more than enough. We're going to be able to jump right into red maps and start seeing just how serious the Elder Slayers can be at their tier 3 and tier 4 versions. So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for everybody coming by the stream. I've been having fun. We've been helping each other find Uber trials and doing unique maps and stuff. So come by the stream and say hi, or feel free to jump into the Discord if you know, I'm not online and you're looking for some advice on what to do with your own totem build. There's plenty of people in the Discord that don't mind answering questions and helping out. So I'm gonna go get some sleep. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.